Welcome back to the Business Mentor podcast. This week we're sitting down with Demos Katsouris. He's the founder of Mikró Kombucha. Now, I never heard of kombucha when I first opened up Elysian restaurant in Nicosia, but it is a drink filled with probiotics and health benefits that is exploding all around the world, especially in the US, in the UK, and all over Europe. Demos has a background as an industrial designer, consulting for some of the biggest tech companies in the US, and he started his journey with experimenting in brewing of kombucha in the Netherlands in Rotterdam. As most great business owners do, he started in his garage, experimenting with brewing kombucha at home. He's got a very powerful story because in the last few months, he's decided to go full time. So in this episode, we go into his journey, into how he fell in love with kombucha, some of the health benefits, some of his secrets behind brewing a very high quality kombucha, and what made him go full time. Get ready for a powerful episode and let's get into it. Welcome to the Business Mentor podcast. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So starting off, tell us a bit about your journey. What got you, because you're not originally an entrepreneur. No. Tell us about your journey coming to entrepreneurism and what inspired you to start Mikró Kombucha.
I started my life wanting to be an engineer. Then I gravitated a little bit more towards design, and I studied industrial design. I did a bachelor's in the UK, and then I moved to the Netherlands. I spent 10 years there. At some point of my life, I was doing user experience research and service design, and I was traveling for work to the US. We were doing interviews and we were staying there for, let's say, 3 to 4 weeks at a time. So it was like an intense work period of time working with some of the biggest tech companies in the world as a consultancy. And then at the time, I had a friend who was a colleague as well, and she said, please send me all the kombucha flavors that you will find in the States, right? Spoiler alert, in the States, kombucha is like huge, gigantic, right? And I was like, what?
What's kombucha?
What is even kombucha? I swear I had no idea. Yeah. So then I went there, I started taking pictures, and naturally I was drinking them. Also, coincidentally, I had some health issues at the time, so I couldn't drink anything with sugars or alcohol. So then I found this and I was like, oh my God, here we are. You know, amazing. It was like some people, they take some time to get, let's say, used to the flavor. But for me, it was like love at first sip. Yeah. As soon as I got back after that first project, I asked my friend to give me the mother. And I started brewing it, and I just fell in love with the possibilities, what you can add to it, the chances of creating different flavors using fruits, herbs, etc., etc. So it's quite a versatile drink, and the rest is history. Yeah.
So for those unfamiliar with what kombucha is, what is it? Because you mentioned mother, which sounds like something from sourdough as well.
Correct.
So can you go through, because I only learned a few years ago once opening up Elysian as well. Some customers were coming in and say, do you have any kombucha? And I was like, what's that?
Yes. So kombucha is sparkling fermented tea, right? I say sparkling because it's naturally effervescent. The fermentation produces that. You typically have yeast fermentation, which are your beers and wines and even sourdough. And then you have bacterial fermentation, which is yogurt, vinegars, etc. Right? So kombucha has a little bit of both. Yeah. So that's also where the complexity comes from. It is a drink which is fermented using this thing called SCOBY, symbiotic colony of bacteria and yeast. They've learned to work together, and they produce a nicely tangy, sparkling, effervescent drink, which is its own category. It's a new thing, let's say, in Cyprus. But when I try to, let's say, telepathically explain to someone what it is, I often say it's a mixture. It could be something between a soft drink and a beer and a cider, experientially, right, as you are having it. So it has nothing to do with warm tea. Cypriots, when you say tea, our mind gravitates to winter and having like chai or something. So yeah, that's a little bit about kombucha.
Correct me if I'm wrong, there's probiotics in there. There's living organisms which help your gut fauna. Is that right? Can you go through a bit of that?
Yes, that is correct. So kombucha is probiotic, which for the viewers, it's the actual organisms that are in your gut, right? So you're having probiotics when you're drinking real kombucha, and we'll get to that in a second. But also kombucha has prebiotics, which is the food for the probiotics, right? So the main health benefits of kombucha come from organic acids that are produced during fermentation by the bacteria. And these are similar acids found in apple cider vinegar. That's why kombucha has its tangy flavor as well. It's a slightly sweet and sour drink. Kombucha also helps you with regulating your insulin because of the acids, and it feeds your gut bacteria and gives you more gut bacteria. And I think Tim Spector, who's one of the key researchers on gut health and nutrition, he had mentioned that kombucha has the highest amount of probiotics compared to other drinks. Of course, these numbers vary, right? But compared to kefir, airani, or other fermented drinks, kombucha has a really high amount of probiotics.
To really get the health benefits, and what consumption do you need to have?
I would say when you're starting, when you're fresh with kombucha, you can drink maybe half a bottle or start slow, share it with someone, see how you feel, especially ours, because it's real authentic kombucha. You can go up to one a day, it's up to you. I drink a little bit more, and I have some customers who drink a little bit more. Just make sure you drink water as well, right? So it's not a substitute for water. I am a firm believer that you should eat your probiotics, whether that kimchi, yogurt, kombucha, kefir. No one ferment is a substitute for the others. We're not promoting our drink and only. I think new studies are also showing that manufactured probiotics are good for you, and you should have them, especially if you're at a challenging situation. But you need that diversity, which doesn't come with, let's say, off-the-shelf probiotics, which will have like selected few strands, versus having, like diversity is key to health, right? Whether it's nature or, crops, etc.
Absolutely. And variety is the spice of life, right?
Precisely, yes.
So tell us, how did you begin Mikró Kombucha? Was it a part-time thing? And what were some of the challenges in the beginning of your entrepreneur journey?
For me, it's only now becoming a full-time thing.
Okay.
It has been a part-time since, let's say, 2022, when we officially started. A little bit of a backstory. I was getting married right after COVID.
Yeah.
And I
Tough
had
time to be getting married.
Yeah, we didn't know if it's going to happen or not.
Yeah.
But thankfully everything opened up and it was all right. But at the time I had some family members which wanted to have a good time, but did not want to have alcohol. So I thought to myself, let's make a small batch of kombucha. I've been trying to start it from a little bit before, but I needed because I was traveling a lot for work, like I said, I needed someone here to collaborate with, so that was a big search. But after my wedding, there were a few bottles left, and I went to this brunch place, really good brunch place in Paralimni, The Loop, and I said, hey, what do you think about this drink? Could you help us? And the lady there, Vaida from Lithuania, she's amazing, and she instantly said yes, and that was the start. My biggest challenge has always been keeping kombucha alive while I'm traveling abroad. So from the get-go, I had to rely on, like a team. My brother was helping me for some time. Yeah, it takes a village, let's say. So I really had to get into that from the beginning. And I also had to get comfortable with managing my stress, because if you're not there to manage it yourself, it can be quite stressful. And just basically trying to educate and help my, let's say, teammates on how to do a good job, spot possible, let's say, challenges with a drink. Because as you know, if you mess up a batch, then it's out of the window, you have to chuck it out, right? And with the food and especially beverages, this can happen. So, just keeping consistency, that was the main challenge. And of course, I had a full-time job. So it was quite a tough time. Hopefully now we can go all in and you should also see the change in the drink as
Amazing.
we go along.
What was the point where you said, I think it's time to go all in? I think, I want to take this full time now.
I've been wanting to go all in for a long time. Maybe when I started brewing, I would even brew at 11 in the night when it was quiet. Like my wife would say, "What are you doing? Don't make noise in the kitchen," etc. So I always had a big love for this. I always wanted to take it forward. But my project is a self-funded project. Only recently we're getting some help from outside. So I really need to bring the business up to a level where it was starting to making enough income before I could leave the other job behind, because it was a well-paid job and it was covering the initial expenses of the shop. I was working for a tech company, and I'm not sure if you're aware of the layoffs that happen periodically with tech companies. It also happened to us, and I thought, okay, this is a sign that I should go after my passion. And that's how I decided to go all in for this.
Amazing. Isn't it amazing how the difficulties in our lives end up being signs? Sometimes nature, God has a way of showing you failure is just showing you you're going in the wrong direction. Change something, get reorganized, and go. And it's amazing that was a sign for you to say, you know what, this is where I need to go.
Precisely. And it doesn't happen very often, but I could say that I was happy to be laid off that time.
Great. What's the reaction been in the Cyprus market? Because we're quite a small market, and it's definitely a niche, and I think you're early in the market. I mean, there are some brands on the market, but there's no fresh kombucha, or if there is, I don't know of them yet. But what's the reaction been from the market?
I think, like you said, it's still early days, and let's say if we have kind of like a bell curve of the early adopters, and then the main mass, and then the late adopters. I think we're still at the very beginning. The reaction has been good. We at the moment have between 20 to 30 customers right now, and we've been fortunate enough to be approaching people and then they don't turn us down. I think I can count the people that turn us down on my fingers of one hand. Amazing. Let's say. I think the main reason behind that is probably because we really worked hard on having a drink which is tasty first. Right?
Because a lot of the kombucha brands you try and you're like, what is this disgusting drink? Yours is fresh, you feel the quality, there's great flavors. 3 hops is my favorite. Oh my God, it's
nice.
It's just very in a niche of its own.
Yeah, it's interesting. 3 hops is also going back to the original origin story, let's say. I loved IPAs, right? So I needed to use hops in one of my drinks. And even though we tried to be as local as possible, hops is something you don't get in Cyprus, but we had to make that drink. I want to be very transparent and say that our drink is constantly evolving. I think had you tried the drink in 2022, it would have been a much more unrefined experience. Right? That's why, going back to that bell curve, you really need to go to the people first that will appreciate the drink for its health benefits, and then eventually you become more mainstream and approach people that just want to have an alternative drink. It has been positive. We're still working hard. I do think that there is space for a couple of brands in Cyprus. And we take a lot of inspiration from the craft beer world. You have Golem, Octo, Pivo, all those guys are doing are doing an incredible job. And I do believe that we should be also working to create this awareness of craft kombucha. And I think people are also making better choices, but maybe we can get to that in a second.
Absolutely. Right? So to clarify, 30 customers, you mean B2B, right? Business to business. Yes. Because you probably potentially have hundreds of customers at the moment, but it's in 30 specific venues.
Yes, correct. We are very grateful that we are a country that, we are open to people to come in. Yesterday, for example, I had a kombucha workshop at Agno Zero Waste Groceries, and I hear this story over and over from Eastern Europeans saying, our grandmother had a jar of kombucha over the fridge, and when they would maybe not feel too well, they would give them a little bit of super strong kombucha to have, and they all say they kind of hated it. You know how you can be when they're giving you medicine growing up. So they get impressed with, oh, this drink has evolved, it has flavors, it's actually quite refreshing, it's light.
Yeah.
And I think that's also where we are trying to take the drink. So we are quite fortunate that we're not just reliant on Cypriots, although I think a lot of Cypriots are embracing the drink, especially in Nicosia. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the people from abroad are really helping us.
Yeah, I noticed that especially when we're in Limassol, running Elysian, that a lot of Russians, Eastern Europeans, Ukrainians, Germans were asking for it. And that's when I really put it in the restaurant.
Yeah.
Nicosia, it's great to hear it's growing. It was unknown maybe 3-4 years ago, but it's really beginning to pick up for sure.
Yeah, my impression, and I got this also from other people, is that, and I might generalize now, so I do apologize. Limassol works with people from abroad, and they are aware of the drink, but Nicosia is open to craft. So that's the slight difference, right? Yeah. As being the capital, I believe the best restaurants are still the majority in Nicosia. You know, people are looking out for something with quality, right? So they might not know kombucha, but they appreciate quality and they're willing to, explore.
Yeah, amazing. I think some of our viewers from Limassol might disagree with the best restaurants being in Nicosia, but I'll take that.
I am not the critic. I just recently went through the 50 best restaurants in Cyprus list.
Okay.
And the majority are here.
Really?
Right? So I don't make up the list.
Okay, impressive.
Yeah.
I'll check that out.
It's about averages, not the best restaurant here.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think we've got a lot of new restaurants as well in Limassol that are really beginning to set the foundation, do something different. And generally, I've said this in other podcasts. I moved from Australia in '99. I also lived in the Netherlands on and off for a couple of years. Amazing country and the people. The environment in the face of Cyprus in the last 25 years has changed so dramatically. The quality, so many craft beers now, as you said, micro boutique wineries, restaurants, new concepts. We've gone to new heights, and it's very exciting, I think, for all of us.
Yeah, it's amazing. And thank you for your podcast that you try to present us this kind of people. I think it's excellent. I would not know a lot of your guests.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really appreciate the work you do.
I appreciate it. It's tough work for now, but everything in the beginning is tough, and that's how you learn. You learn from the difficulty.
Yeah.
And I think we've got amazing entrepreneurs out there. If you're in America, it's unlimited, but a lot of people are selecting huge names for podcasts. Where in Cyprus, everyone's got a story to tell. Especially business owners, you face difficulty, you grow through that, you go into the unknown. There's risk, there's uncertainty. And when you're in a smaller market, sometimes you have to work much harder to succeed. So I think that there's a lot of amazing guests to welcome on and amazing venues to show too. Can you walk us through the production process?
Yes.
What's your secret behind the quality and the flavors as well?
So I might disappoint some people. There is no one secret. Our process starts with steeping organic green and black tea from India and China. We use organic cane sugar, and then we brew our tea, we sweeten it, and then we inoculate it with a culture, which we try to keep fresh and vibrant.
Yeah.
Right? So that fermentation, the first fermentation will take anywhere between 10 to 14 days. Right? Then we flavor our kombucha. For different flavors, we use different techniques. You can infuse, you can add juices. But what we try to do differently is we try to use real whole ingredients, right? What does that mean? I really believe in using something to this purest form. So it's gonna be whole lemons, whole grapefruits. We process everything in-house, even the ginger we process in-house. And I think that's also a little bit what makes us unique. No syrups, no sweeteners. We allow our kombucha to naturally carbonate until 75% of the carbonation. And the reason behind it is quite simple. We just want to be compliant with alcohol regulations. If we would do natural carbonation all the way, we would be close to the limit, and we want to avoid that, right? We want to be a non-alcoholic drink, which is good for you. We try to do everything natural until we cannot anymore. As it's a craft beverage, you might see variations from batch to batch, and I think that's also a good sign, right? Our kombucha can be a little bit cloudy, and that's also a good sign that it is a good drink. That means that it has not been filtered or pasteurized, right? So when you get our drink, it retains its full vitality and it goes into your glass and you can consume it.
I mean, I love that you use organic cane sugar because sugar, processed sugar is pretty much a poison and almost addictive as cocaine.
Yes.
And it's in everywhere.
Correct.
And it's one of our values as well here at Elysian is that we don't use white sugar in anything. There's actually not even cane sugar in there, but we use coconut sugar, dates, all the naturals. And cane sugar itself, for the people that don't know, is a superfood. Brown sugar is white sugar that's colored. The fact that you're using organic cane sugar is incredible.
Yeah.
And I know it's a pricey ingredient for sure.
Yeah. We do maybe a little bit about us, right? I told you the origin story, but we started trying to make the drink that we want to drink ourselves. And that's the drink we drink ourselves, right? So what we try to do is we want to give you something which does not rob you of your energy or your vitality. It's not medicinal kombucha that has fermented for ages, like, you know, the grandmas in Eastern European countries, but it's definitely something that you can have in the afternoon. It's going to be a nice pick-me-up, also in the morning, actually. And basically it's something that's going to add to your like battery as opposed to like something which is just tasty and it will deplete your energy levels. And I think that's why I also fell in love with kombucha, right? It's hard to get this trifecta of like taste, benefit, and I don't know, like mouthfeel that comes together and it's healthy at the same time, right? So it's quite special.
Yeah, it's a very different when you're talking about something that is a living organism being made in Cyprus and delivered within a couple of weeks of production.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's one of our values as well here, that my wife and I eat every single day from the restaurant. We want the quality food that we would eat. You just feel very different creating that sort of sustainable business and with an ethos that you know you're giving love to your customers as well.
100%. Maybe something else on the sugars since we're here, right? We made a recent post on Instagram, people can go see it, which is about kombucha and sugar and how despite the fact that kombucha has a little bit of sugar inside, ours is actually quite low compared to other brands. This is based on the feedback that we get from our customers, right? That ours is on that sweet and sour balance. It's a little bit sour, but it's not like overly sweet. So it's easy for someone to just add more sugar and then attract people, but we just want to make it a balanced drink. During the fermentation, the sugars are broken down into simpler sugars, like what you find in fruits and vegetables. And because of the organic acid, if you have it with your meal, your insulin response will be 30% less.
Oh, wow.
Right? So you can see Tim Spector, the glucose goddess, they explain all these things. And for example, they say, put 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar in your water and have it before a meal. That's going to help with your digestion. Kombucha is already, has a little bit of the acidic acid in it, and then it's ready for you to consume, and it's not an odd drink. It can be a very tasty drink as well.
How are you positioning Mikró Kombucha for the future?
What might help us understand, let's say, how the positioning is that if you imagine, let's say, 2 lines, one on top of each other, you have the entry level kombucha, and then you have the high-end kombucha. Right? The entry-level kombucha is mostly also what gets imported from abroad, and usually because of, let's say, transportation cost is pasteurized. Now, don't get me wrong, that's still a better drink than most,
Yeah.
right? Than a soft drink. So there is value to having that, and it deserves to be on the market. But we are on the higher end level where our product is more craft. We see ourselves a little bit similar to like some of the craft beers, although their tradition and knowledge is like vastly bigger than ours.
Yeah.
And that's why we use glass, and that's why we use the packaging similar to beer. There are other elements for that. Using glass is also important because we have a sour drink, an acidic drink, and it's important that it stays in glass, despite the fact that it's a much more expensive packaging. I think this also gives you a little bit an idea that if I bring you a glass kombucha, especially in an amber bottle, you can serve it at Elysian. But if I came here with a different looking product, let's say not to pick on anybody, it might make sense maybe during the day, but maybe towards the evening it would stop making sense.
Well, first of all, if it was served in plastic, it wouldn't be at Elysian.
Exactly. There you go.
Because
Yes.
one of our values is we don't serve plastic and there's no outgoing plastic. Because it's so funny, you go to the supermarket, now they charge us for plastic bags, and you go to the veggie section, you can put 20 different veggies in 20 different plastic bags, so you don't pay for those.
Yeah.
The
true.
irony is amazing. And I once heard a great TED talk years ago, it was probably 10 years ago, from an 11-year-old boy who was growing up in a farm, an organic farm. And, you know, he was saying to people, yes, organic farming is more expensive, but either you pay the organic farmers now or you pay the doctors later. Other way you pay.
Yeah.
And yes, some of the premium products can be more expensive, but the impacts on your health. Today I just literally found a company online that I'm ordering dishwashing sheets and washing machine as well sheets that are completely chemical free. Not that much more expensive actually if you look at it,
Yeah.
but the impacts of their health, much bigger.
Much bigger, yeah. I think also something for people to understand is that, let's say if you buy a vegetable, right, and it's quite cheap, you use chemicals or something which is not good for the soil, then it's kind of like robbing the earth of its nutrients, right? If you're buying something which year after year the soil is healthy and it's keep producing, the same cauliflower or broccoli or whatever, that's a sustainable practice, then that is the cost of what you're buying.
Yeah.
Right? So I think it's good to remember now. I have tremendous empathy for people who might not have the money and they cannot afford organic. I don't buy all my things organic.
Neither do I.
It's just important to understand, because we overhauled and we can get more produce, that doesn't mean that's the right price. And I started actually my journey selling at an organic market in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
First time while
Amazing.
I was still there. And I think at some point I also brought a suitcase back to Cyprus and did a user test and asked people which flavor do you prefer the best. But at the time I asked this lady who was organizing the organic market, and she said something which stayed with me. She said, if you're buying for volume or weight, supermarket is better. If you're buying for nutrition, this is much better, right? Your euro towards nutrition. So it's also a little bit of a mindset shift that we need to, have and be aware of.
Absolutely. As a founder of Demo, can you share with us, how do you stay inspired, energized? How do you keep clear on your goals and stay in that zone?
As a person, I think I have a little bit the tendency to look ahead. I think that can be sometimes a little bit of a problem. Like you're trying to go, you run before you can walk. But on the practical side, what I try to do, I constantly research, look up on things online. And I think I have been actually quite fortunate to have lived abroad where kombucha was more matured and then come to Cyprus. I can't speak for other producers, but I think this is something which might be lacking here, because I understood what is good kombucha before I was in Cyprus, right? So I had a goal. At the same time, I go on kombucha pilgrimages, as I call them, and I went one to one in the UK. I visited 6 breweries and, just asked them. I was just being nice. I just said, hey, look, I'm really trying to get this off in my home country. I'm not here to compete or steal your secrets. You're free to share what you want to share. I just want to see, like, how's your journey so I can predict how mine is, right? And I think knowledge and awareness is the most important thing. And I'm actually going again back to the Netherlands and Belgium this time, the beginning of next month, for a second pilgrimage to, like, just get inspired. And there are also, like, plenty of awards now on kombucha. See what other brands that are ahead of you are doing and just apply your own flavor, right? Kombucha is in Cyprus doesn't have to be the same as in the US, and it will not be the same as the US. That's why we also try to use local ingredients more and more and more. Just make notes and like, define your goals. I think for me the biggest challenge is more like how to prioritize, right? There is so many things to be done, and thankfully, like, my wife also helps me sometimes. Hey, sit down and, like, figure out what's priority, because as a fresh business owner, it's easy to just get consumed and just be a little bit in survival mode. But it's important to, like, take care of your health, your mental wellness, and, like, just take some time to breathe. I don't know who said this, maybe you know this better, but a business is like a car that you're trying to change the engine or parts of the car while it's running, right? So I think that's really telling about, like, keep the boat going while, like, maintaining operations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love what you said about, going out to other kombucha producers and on a pilgrimage.
Yeah.
You saw the episode, because you said you saw all the episodes. I really appreciate that, with Paulina and Luca.
Yeah.
And one thing, the powerful thing they're doing is they're speaking and working with the other glamping sites. They know all of them.
Yeah.
They feel like they're in the same market, and it can be win-win. When people unite their powers, rather than thinking scarcity, thinking abundance, there's enough for everybody, that there's a massive market, not only in Cyprus and abroad. And when people have that abundance mentality, it changes the way you work. It changes the way you view the world, the way you view competition, and brings in the opportunity for healthy competition. And that's where people can really grow. Yeah. Because I think, especially for kombucha, there's definitely a massive market.
Let's try to make the pie bigger, as opposed to, like, getting as much of the pie that is there. And that can only happen with cooperation. And I think as long as everybody has their own vision and their kind of flavor, their kind of approach, and people embrace that, there should be a reason for everyone to, like, for more people to be in this market.
Absolutely.
Right? Maybe one more thing, I would call anybody to learn from, let's say, winemakers or from beer makers, right? We learn a lot from the beer industry, right? Yeah. And we have been fortunate to use their resources. Like, for example, the Anama project episode was inspiring. I was like, wow, I wish I could know more about his process. Yeah. Right? So yeah, it's an open, just be open, just be kind. Don't insist if people say no, and just, you'll find the right people to get info from.
Any final thoughts, Dimo?
For me, it's a passion project, right? So I cannot speak really as a serial entrepreneur, but I think anybody who's starting out, whatever the project is, I would say just go for, try to find your own flavor, your own reason. I don't believe as a person that we are here to do only one thing and to find our calling. I think we make our calling. Yeah. Life can be wonderful. And I think it was Philip Stark who said, nobody's obliged to be a genius, but everybody's obliged to contribute, right? So you're here, just find your thing, find something you're good at, and then just, be open to the possibilities, right? Another thing that I really love, and this has happened to me several times, was in one of the podcasts that, I listened to, someone said, luck is like the bus. If you're at the bus stop, you'll get it, and then it will come again. So in Greek we say, "Sin Athina ke chiragini," right? So, like just try, do your best, and then everything else, you'll find your angels. You might need investment, you'll also find it. As long as you put your heart and soul, I think you'll find the means. Be realistic and work hard, and I think if you have something to say and people appreciate it, it should move forward.
Awesome. If anybody's interested in making their own kombucha, Demos is also running workshops. Follow them on Mikró Kombucha. Thank you very much and wish you all the best.